Hello and welcome back. Before we get to part 2, Real Talk, please allow us to fulfill our capitalistic duty and plug our Patreon, the Contrarians Supplements.
That's right. For a small fee, you too can help the Contrarians rage on.
We have tiers ranging from just $1 to $10. It all depends on how much content you can handle.
Starting at $1, it's a Travoltis tier, which gets you access to new bonus episodes focusing on a new movie every month, as well as access to the patron chat. Join other patrons in making fun of our opinions.
Moving up to $3 is the Winonis tier, which unlocks access to our pre-recording notes, our video reviews, and our spin-off show, Contrarians After Hours.
That's a more laid-back space where we talk about other things we've been watching, reading, playing, thinking about. Sometimes it's related to the movies being covered in the main feed, but it usually isn't.
If you want to be part of those patrons who help us shape the show by telling us which movies to tackle, that's when you sign up for the $5 tier, the Embries, and the $10, the Gads.
Finally, all supplement subscribers, regardless of the tier, get access to our archive of special patron projects. Head over to patreon.com/contrarianprime now to join.
Be sure to listen through the end of the episode to find out what's coming up to the Contrarian Supplements this month. Now, it's time for some Real Talk. All right, Julio, we're back for Real Talk on Andhadhun. I feel bad because I thoroughly enjoyed this motion picture, and I feel as though I should be able to properly pronounce the fucking title of it.
I mean, you can break it up into 3 English words, right? And, as in, and now this. Had, as in, I had a thought. And then hun, as in, when a Southern belle calls you honey, but shortened.
Takes your order at the Waffle House.
Yes.
This was a Sriram Raghavan film. He was the director. Also one of 5 writers on this. This film was released in India on October 5th of 2018. Had a budget of 32 crore. And the box office return was close to 460 crore, which translates roughly to about 65 million on our end in American dollars. It became the 4th highest grossing Indian film of 2018, and it went on to be remade in several different countries. Yeah. There's a Tamil version of it called Andhadhun, the Pianist.
I guess there's also an American version, right? Didn't Polanski do one with Adrian Brody?
God. One of the more polarizing, if I was going to be nice about the situation, best director recipients that year. Julio, would you agree with the black comedy label on this?
No. That's not to say that there aren't funny parts in the movie, and a lot of the humor is pretty dark, but I think that for it to be labeled a comedy, it would have to primarily be a comedy. I don't think that that's what this is. Do you disagree? Do you think this is a comedy more so than a thriller, I guess?
As much as I enjoyed this, one of the things I was kind of like bummed about was after that sequence of them wheeling the dead body out of the apartment, I thought the movie was going to be more of that than what it became. It basically became a Bogdanovich in a lot of ways of like, who do we trust? Okay, who's partnered with who now? Okay, who's trying to do what? But that sequence, that may be where the movie peaks until the end because I really liked the ending of it. But that whole sequence in the apartment's pretty funny and also like genuinely kind of like, oh shit, like when they show that shot of the legs and stuff, that's a very well done sequence that they have there.
And can you imagine if the last shot of the movie had been, forget what we pitched in Contrarians Corner, the last shot is just Akash walking away and then he turns to Sophie and goes, Fuck it.
All right. Now, so let's not get it twisted. This movie ain't as good as Saint Jack, but all right, Julio. So before we get much deeper into it, I think did you have to go to the well of Letterboxd to find some negative reviews on this? Where'd you have to dig?
Yeah, I went to Letterboxd. Thankfully, they have that option where you can just set up your filters, so I can choose to pull up reviews that are 2 stars or less. We're gonna start with Quentin, who watched Andhadhun on April 10th, 2020. Gave it 2 stars and says the movie is about a man who is blind, but isn't blind, then is blind. With all the unnecessary twists that come from irrational character motives, I am led to believe that the ones truly blind were the writers. 5 writers, you said?
Yeah.
You think like each writer took a character? That's what we ended up with, like all those digressions. Like somebody really liked the Lotto lady. And I'm like, no, we're going to give her a whole arc. Alistair Ryder watched Andhadhun on July 12th, 2020, gave it 1.5 stars and says, features some of the ugliest CGI animals I've ever seen. Absolutely baffled as to why they didn't just get an animal wrangler. Surely would have been cheaper than making the main character's pet cat a special effects monstrosity. Equally baffling is the fact that this is currently sitting at 184 on IMDb's top 250. Alex, was the cat CGI?
If it was, it didn't look bad enough for me to get to bat an eye. I guess I wasn't really paying attention to the cat.
I was paying attention to the cat, and I didn't think so.
Yeah, I don't know. The rabbit looks awful.
Yes.
But, yeah, that's a very Alex Mattis thing to get hung up on.
How about the fact that it's 184 out of on the IMDb top 250?
That's a bit ridiculous. But how does that work? How does the algorithm on that work?
It's just basically their popcorn meter. It's just user votes. You know, if you have an IMDb account, you can just rate stuff from 1 to 10. And I guess the top 250 rated ones. I mean, I don't know if it still is, but for the longest time, Shawshank Redemption was number 1, which I love the Shawshank Redemption. I don't know that it's like number 1 of all time.
Yeah, that's... If that's a masterpiece, then what is Citizen Kane? You know,
a dated masterpiece.
No, that's my William Friedkin when Nicholas Winding Refn's interviewing him.
Oh,
when he refers to Drive as a masterpiece.
Yeah.
Drive isn't a pimple on the ass of life yet, the ass of the industry. And then he talks about only God forgives. That's where it comes from. He's like, it was very inexpensive to make. William Friedkin, who gives a shit?
All right. The scores keep going down, Alex. 1 star from Liana, who watched it September 7th, 2024. Says, Andhadhun, more like Andhadont. This thriller had me hoping for a plot twist that never came. As much as I like the Andhadont part of it, I can't believe that this person is asking for more plot twists.
That's not even a good play on words. Andhadhun should be more like Andhadhun. That would work a lot better.
And duh. Okay, this one is actually from a friend of ours, past guest and semi-retired podcaster now, Paul from The Countdown. Gave it 2 stars. Watched it December 23rd, 2021. He says that Andhadhun currently ranks in the IMDb top 250 movies of all time is a bigger crime than what takes place in this film, as Bollywood once again draws out a 90-minute decent idea into a 2-hour, 20-minute exercise in tedium with songs. I mean, we've watched much, much, much longer, Alex.
Yeah.
So you're not going to hear me complain about the runtime on this one.
No.
And actually don't mind the songs. I wasn't kidding, Contrarians Corner. I was a little bummed that there wasn't more flair to the musical numbers we got.
The songs themselves are, you know, I'm not going to be humming any of them to myself tomorrow, but they're all very pleasant little ditties. Yeah. But of course the spectacle's not there.
Mm-hmm. If you ever rewatch this movie, because I didn't get to make this joke in Contrarians Corner, when he's fighting the big fight between Akash and Simi, is it the actress?
Mm-hmm.
Where she betrays him again.
Again.
They get into a big fight right before the doctor comes in. But anyway, when the big fight kicks in, the music could be from a porno. I don't expect you to remember it right now, but like I said, if you ever watch this movie again, when it gets to that scene, just kind of like close your eyes, pretend you're blind, if you will, and just listen to to the music, to the score for that big fight. It was like, what the fuck happened here? But anyway, we're going to close with a positive review from the man behind this patron pick, Robert Stewart. Stu from Stewart Order gave this 4 stars. Watched it March 7, 2023. And he says, it spends the first hour being silly and enjoyable and absurd. A lot of wacky goings on and crazy coincidences that make you chuckle. And shortly after that, it gets dark and becomes a series of betrayals, one after another, to the point where you are never sure who, if anyone, Akash should trust. It ends up feeling a bit Guy Ritchie-esque, with everything coming together in the third act. Although I think I like this more than the Ritchie films I have seen. I have to interject here. Stu, what Guy Ritchie movies have you seen?
Yeah. Have you seen Snatch?
Yeah. I think that we need to educate Stu on the wonders of Guy Ritchie.
You could also said Carnahan-esque.
Carnahan-esque. There you go. Smoking Aces. This ain't.
I kind of like that though. That's for as silly as this kind of gets towards the end. What was that one I thought was pretty solid from a couple years ago?
The Gentleman.
The Gentleman. There you go. Yeah.
Man, I still haven't seen it. I need to. Anyway, Stu continues. Money on the line, big cast of characters, deceit all over the place, etc. It has that kind of feel to it. And then he closes with, I wish Sophie had remained relevant in the third act, though. She gets written out until the epilogue, and I'd like to have replaced that final bit with more of her in all of the climaxes. I mean, it is implied that she gets at least one climax in the movie early on.
Well, I don't know how. Oh wait, no, she does compliment how great he was in bed. Yeah.
She says that he's wild in bed. So,
there you go.
I agree with that. I thought it was weird that she's such a big part of the first, I don't know, third of the movie, and then, man, she's gone.
I was actually pretty serious about what I said in Contrarians Corner of, if you found out someone was lying to you about being blind, you probably would just be like, all right, fuck off. I'm like, this isn't like, a text is going to fix this. So
yes.
I found in a movie that was completely unrealistic, I found a certain bit of realism in that aspect of it. So it also made it believable when in the end he tried to kind of like reconnect with her and she was like, well, let's not get ahead of ourselves here.
I'm sure he had a different dude, right? Isn't she gallivanting with some whitey?
Some gringo, yeah. I guess that's all fair. What Stu said.
I mean, 4 stars. He liked it, and you've been strongly hinting that you liked it too, Alex. So I'm very.
Oh yeah.
I'm keen to hear all your praise.
I mean, what was the last one of these we did? Because like,
Pathan.
Yeah, Pathan fucking ruled too.
Very different movie though.
Definitely. Pathan was a bit long and also just it at a certain point became like almost too much. But it becomes too much in a different way of, okay, who's with who now? Who's working with who? What are we doing? But there's aspects of this I find really entertaining. And to be completely honest with you, that like last 10 minutes of the movie, that's one of those you go from 1-star rating almost up a whole other star because of what they kind of do with the ending of the movie. Before I go too much further into it, where are you on this? What were your thoughts?
This is one of those instances where I kind of made up in my mind what the movie was going to be, and then it went a completely different direction, which wasn't a bad movie, but it was not the movie I wanted. I wanted the funny movie when you stick a guy in a suitcase, like a dead guy in a suitcase, and then you have to like pull out the hand so you can get the ring, and then you break the finger, and all while a guy that's pretending to be blind is playing the piano.
Yeah.
Man, that sells me a very specific kind of movie that is not what happens in Andhadhun, right? I was like, oh, okay, this is just gonna be nonstop shenanigans. And it's not. It's more of a crime movie, and there's some very suspenseful scenes, like the first time that the cop goes with Akash to his house, to his apartment, and Akash has to pretend that he's blind while the cop is kind of observing him and trying to trick him, right? Trying to determine if he's there, and then the cat shows up and breaks the tension. I mean, I think that scene's really good, but it's not funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, but when I was watching, I was like, oh, it's going to be more of a crime thing. It's going to be about suspense. It's not going to be about what else is going to happen. What else is this guy going to be witness to that he can't tell people about? Because I think that if you have a comedy, if it's a full-on comedy, you just completely forget about the logic. You don't have to worry about, why are they doing this? How are they? Because everything that happens in comedy is just happening mainly because it needs to be funny. And there's no worries about the morality. I mean, part of the joy of watching a comedy is that you see bad people or reprehensible people get their comeuppance as part of their journey. This is a little different, and it is a good movie for what it is. But I was struggling with some of that when I was watching it. That's why a little peek behind the curtains. I asked Alex. I told him that I needed to rewatch some stuff because I wanted to give the movie kind of like a fair shake, and I wanted to watch some of the scenes that I was kind of on the fence about, like that thing with the cop. I was like, that is good, isn't it? It's just that it was not funny, and that bothered me. And it is good, when you watch it again. When I watched it again, I was like, this is well shot. It's very well staged, and there's a lot of stuff like that, but it's just not the movie I wanted. And I think that those first 30 minutes. Obviously, they come to a fork on the road. They're like, we've set this up, and now if you take the left road, then it's going to be funny. If you take the right road, it's just going to be more of a thriller. And they went with the thriller part of it. And I didn't feel the runtime. I thought it was about the runtime, but I did feel a little bit what we were joking about in Contrarians Corner, where there's no point in me keeping track of who's with who because it's not going to last.
Yeah.
And so
it's also no point in keeping up with who wronged who, because people are just going to team up with each other no matter what.
Yes. Yeah. It works both ways. It was like, it doesn't matter that you guys are enemies right now, because 2 scenes later, you're probably going to be working together. But then that doesn't matter also because 2 scenes after that, you're going to be betraying each other. So I get it that's a type of movie, and there's an avenue of storytelling that just goes for that. And I think that there are audiences that enjoy it a lot more than I do. Do you remember, Alex, when we did back in the summer of Travolta, we did Basic?
Basic.
It's Sam Jackson. It's all about John Travolta, jacked as shit, goes to this military base to investigate the murder of Sam Jackson. And he basically spends the entire movie interrogating people and piecing together what happened.
I've watched it, so yeah.
The big reveal at the end is that everything was a lie, and Sam Jackson's still alive.
Oh, isn't it raining a lot in that movie?
Yeah. Because
yeah.
He dies when they're doing an exercise and it's raining, and Giovanni Ribisi is in it.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm looking at I Google image searched it, and that shot of Travolta coming out of the shower with the towel, and yeah, I remember. I don't remember anything else, but I remember that.
He was on his way to opening the door for the cops.
You're all Section 8.
I told you she was smart.
Oh, you said she was. What did you say she was? Hot. Yes, ma'am. We're officially Section 8.
That's the movie that I always think about when I think of a movie that gets a little too caught up on its twists and turns and reveals, and you stop connecting to the characters because you're like, well, I don't care, right? And there was a little bit of that too. I mean, and especially because
you ever seen Reindeer Games? That movie gets pretty caught up in its twists and turns.
Yes, but I think that movie. And
it's
we
fun.
both agree that it's not a good movie, right? Or are you still arguing that it's a good movie? I mean,
no,
it's entertaining.
I have a massive nostalgia, soft spot for it, but it's it's fun, but I would not. It's not good the way, say, Casino is a good movie.
No, but if you put Gary Sinise, Ben Affleck, and Charlize Theron in the plot of Andhadhun, does it make it better? Because that was going to be my thing. It was like, well, sometimes star power carries you across the finish line and improves things,
Then you're getting into like xenophobic territory. Just because we don't know who these people are doesn't mean it doesn't work. I thought there wasn't like a bad person among. What was the movie with the guy who? It was one of the Indian movies we did. The guy who would like chew the meth and give him superpowers. Was that Vikram?
That was Vikram. Yes.
Yeah. God, that movie sucks. And that guy, I remember, just wasn't good in it. He might be a lovely dude, IRL, but he was just not good in that movie. Whereas here, for as silly as this movie becomes, I thought all of the acting was pretty much like what it needed to be. Taboo is quite great. And there are a couple parts where it almost borders on shtick, but the dude who plays Akash is also very solid.
Yes. Yeah, I agree. I kind of liked, it's funny because I like the trio of like the doctor, the lottery lady, and the rickshaw driver. I like them, but I also feel like they're their own little movie. And that's the part I don't like. But
that is something we've seen time and time again with these Indian films that we've covered that I find myself typically forgiving of, because at this point I feel we've watched enough, especially modern, to kind of comment on it. And it seems like that is definitely a go-to, is the pair or even sometimes group of kind of bumbling side characters.
Yeah.
That, you kind of depend on to advance the plot in kind of a minor way, but they're also they're kind of just silly in comparison to the main characters that you have. So when Swami, I believe his name was, when he starts talking about cutting out fucking kidneys and shit, I was like, wait, hold on now.
Oh, so he's a bad guy. But he's not. I mean, he is, but he is not the bad guy. One of my notes for Contrarians Corner, again, I didn't get to it, but I was like, these people, they're like Timon and Pumbaa. They show up halfway through the movie, and then now you're stuck with them for the rest of the movie. They didn't just come in for like one scene. They become integral part of the plot, and that takes some adjustment, because I was like, I enjoy them, I enjoy the performances, I don't know that we needed them, right? I was happy with the kind of like a streamlining of the plot and the characters. I guess from the moment that you blind him and he's not used to being blind, you do need somebody to help him out. But at that point, I would have thought that if anybody was going to be he was going to team up with anybody, it would have been the kid that they've been kind of teasing in the first half of the movie as like, oh, well, this is going to lead to something. And then that kid, much like Sophie, he just disappears.
Yeah.
Like, he has that scene where the door to Akash's apartment is open, and the kid kind of walks in and sees him on the couch crying. And then he walks away. And I thought, oh, is he going to come back with help? But no, he walks away and out of the movie forever. Going back to something I said in Contrarians Corner, I think it's weird that we never see the husband getting shot.
Yeah, and I think at the end it kind of made more sense to me in the idea of leaving kind of the interpretation up to the audience. I don't know if that was intentional. I don't think it was. I think we're just supposed to immediately deduce that the wife and the cop killed him. I loved at first the scene where the cop's wife finds out about the affair and is trying to shoot him, and then she just kind of gives up on it. But I do like how after like the moment of seeing red passes for her, she just tells him, he's like, you better clean this shit up because I'm not going to deal with it.
Okay, now that lady, I thought she was great. She only has like a couple scenes, but there's an earlier scene where she is doing the police work for them. And obviously her husband is not interested in solving this case because he's the guilty party. But she's like, you need to get them to draw like a portrait of the guy and interrogate this person. I'm pretty sure that the wife was having an affair and all that. And I thought that was another thing that I thought that they were setting up to be a long running conflict, right? This cop is guilty and his wife is one of the people that's kind of working against him and one of the sharpest that's working against him. But no, I mean, she kind of gets dropped. But she was, I thought the performance was good and the character was good. There's just like, I guess, a whole lot of elements that was my story with this movie. Like things where I would pick up and I would latch onto them and be like, oh, this is going to be cool when they do something more with it. And then they wouldn't, or they would go in a completely different direction. So I think that was a little frustrating. And maybe, Alex, because I wasn't like completely engaged in that last third or whatever, when it got to the end, maybe that's why I didn't really stop to consider what the implications of that last shot were. Like, did it really blow your mind automatically? Or was it one of those things where like the movie ended and then 5 minutes later you're like, wait a minute?
Oh, no. Immediately when it happened, it was like, oh, shit. Because I knew instantly there had to be a reason they separate, like they cut off and he went back to tell the ending of the movie. I kind of made the Killing Joke reference of
Right.
like, this is the origin story. So I thought that was awesome. I've kind of in the course of this conversation and kind of just reflecting upon the movie and as a whole, I'm starting to kind of cool down a little bit, but that was like immediately. I was like, "Oh, this is great!" Like 4 stars immediately was like what I thought when that ending happened.
Well, we're not in Contrarians Corner anymore, so tell me, what is it saying then? I guess it's a pretty damning statement about Akash, right? It turns out that he was just as corrupt as everybody else.
He was from the jump. He was pretending to be blind.
Right, but he was telling you, well, he was putting up a lot of excuses and he was rationalizing a lot of what he had done as like, well, I'm not harming anybody, really. I mean, I didn't buy it, but I could believe that he believed it, if that makes any sense.
Well, you have to think about anyone who would do something like that, the level of like egotism and like contempt for fellow man it would take to do something like that.
Yes, that's true. That's true. But of course, I mean, there's that, and then there is killing a woman and selling her organs and taking her corneas. And I know this is somebody that had tried to kill him at least twice and had killed other people. That is, I think that's the argument that the doctor puts forward, right? It's like, well, what do you care? She's a monster. And even Sophie
Yeah,
agrees.
that's what she tells him. It's like, she hurt so many people, you should have just done it.
Right. But that is still a hell of a thing to do. So, I mean, if that's really what happened, and really the more we talk about it, the more I think that, yeah, that has to be it. And it even, I guess, retroactively fixes that problem I have with them not showing us the husband being killed. Because if the whole idea, the overarching idea of the movie is that people lie and people, will tell you their own versions of the story, they will embellish and alter their stories so that they're better served, then, well, it makes sense that, we never see the husband getting killed because we're just getting the version from the wife, and she's never going to tell you that that's what happened, right? And then we only get the version that Akash says happened at the end, because, we could say, well, we never get to see them operating on this lady and taking her kidneys out or anything. So
it's also a particularly interesting ending in the sense of, again, Julio and I are not historians with Indian cinema, but we do have a pretty significant sample pool to pull from with the ones that we've done for our show. And by and large, there typically are really no layers to our protagonists in these. There can be like motivations for the reasons they do things, but you just think of like Singham. Singham is just like an unbridled force of like noble and good,
Yeah.
And even like something like Vikram or Karti or some of these other movies we've done where like there's a lot of like killing and shit, it's still in the name of like good versus evil. Whereas here, this makes the movie, just that last shot makes it extremely complex. And I mean, the movie starts, I at first was like, because there's even like that joke about, because he's blind, so the bird poops on him and he pretends like he doesn't know the bird pooped on him.
Yeah.
And there's the little kid that I thought was going to play like more of a factor in it. And so as this movie progressed, even though the twists and turns got kind of a bit ridiculous and stuff, it's still, this guy was just, he would sell anybody out to get ahead in the situation. And then like the ambiguity, as we said about the ending of this movie, it's fascinating. And I could see audiences responding to it like, holy shit, what? Like what happened here? Even, I mean, that is the fucking Usual Suspects ending. It's truncated. It's not like he starts like running in slow motion or anything like that, but it's enough to make you go, okay, well, now I have to rethink what I just watched, which isn't typically the case with these movies, that we've done.
Yeah. But I think the risk is that then you're kind of overthinking what a movie that is not that deep, you know? Because my gut reaction is like, I get it then, but this is too complex for the
Johnny
movie.
Darko?
Fuck you. Don't you dare put Donnie Darko and Andhadhun on the same level. There's no Jake Gyllenhaal here.
Jake could do this. The American remake, Jake could be Akash.
Anyway, there's no existential dread in Andhadhun.
You
right?
don't say.
I mean, no, well, I'm just saying because you are the one that was making this comparison. I mean, I don't think that, and because there
it's also
isn't.
12:30 at night. This is when things get really interesting when we record these.
That's where the mind starts firing in different directions. Well, here's the thing. I think that the ending of the movie deserves a better lead up to it. You know, if you're really gonna have this examination of like what's true, what isn't, what do we believe, or who can we trust, that is not really touched upon in the movie, because the movie is just about like, well, and now this happens and then this happens and this happens. It's just, you know, the plot.
One of the singular things that really, to me, threw it off the rails was Akash working with Simi again. When they are helping each other, I'm like, wait, well, she's the reason you're like shoot blind right now. Like, what are you doing? It would have made that ending even more impactful when she gets back into the car and he doesn't know she's in there with him. If they hadn't been like working together, and in that third act, some things happen that it's like, this is kind of a bummer because I thought we had built up to something different.
Why is he still pretending to be blind? And I guess the answer is for the same reason he was pretending to be blind at the beginning of the movie, which is like he thinks that it makes him play better.
I'm a fucking artist.
Yeah. Because he's already made it. He seems to be successful in Europe. It is the idea that, well, he's only successful because he's pretending to be blind.
Perhaps, Julio, he's seen the true evils of the world firsthand, and he doesn't want to see anymore.
The director of this movie just listened to this podcast and was like, I like that line. I think I'm going to steal it.
All right, so we talked about the promise of the kind of dark comedy that never came. One of the things that I don't think was supposed to be funny, but was hysterical, was the manner in which Simi threw Mrs. Desa over the balcony in their apartment complex.
Yes. That's not supposed to be funny, right?
I don't think so. But like, she throws her heels over her head and she just goes flying. All that was missing was like a Wilhelm scream.
Yeah, that is, you can like this movie, you can dislike this movie. I think that everybody can agree that that little sequence is not well shot.
No.
Because there's a way of shooting this to where you can conceivably believe that this woman would be able to push this older woman to her death. But man, what is it? Could they not find a better location? Because the way that thing is, it necessitates her lifting her from the legs up, I guess, so that she can actually fall. And that just looks silly. For the tone that the movie has at that moment, it's weird. And I think, Alex, that's the first time I disconnected from the movie. Going like, what the fuck was that? I'm not sure if it's supposed to be funny that our other main bad guy accidentally shoots himself in the elevator. Is that supposed to be funny or not?
Maybe. I don't know. That was very confusing to me.
It's not satisfying.
No.
I know that. This guy, I wanted to see him get his, and it's just, it's almost off screen because the screen is black when it happened. You just hear it. It was like, what happened? That was it? That was disappointing. And then we go on the big final sequence where they take the guy, the rickshaw driver, to the hospital. Mm-hmm. That is one of those, speaking of things that we notice or that we point out as having in common, like all these Indian movies that we've done here and on Patreon, right? Like they have that moment where it's just overly emotional, very melodramatic, and sometimes it comes at the expense of the flow of the movie. Sometimes it may be like a comedy or something that's being funny or fun, and then suddenly everything stops so you can have this big dramatic moment. And I felt that was a little bit this sequence here where we're in the middle of the climax. I really shouldn't have to care about what happens with this lady.
Yeah.
Because she was not one of the main characters, but yet we just keep cutting back to her in the hospital, and she gets this big moment where she reacts to the death of her brother, boyfriend, associate, whoever he was. And it's like, I guess it's a nice detail that the money was fake, but I also don't know that it adds much to. I guess it's just one more deception in a movie that seems to be kind of built around deception. So I guess maybe that's justified. But the bigger point is that I don't think that we needed that little side plot to go on for as long as it needed to go. I think that she just needed to die the same way that, you know, her buddy died.
Getting shot in the fucking neck.
Well, maybe not on the neck, but no, actually, you know what she should have done is the way that I think feels more like it gels with everything else is she just takes the money and goes, and she leaves the other guy to die.
Mm-hmm.
That's, you know, this movie that fits with what the way that all the characters are in this movie. They're just out for themselves, even when they pretend that they're friends or lovers. And so the cop kills himself, the other guy gets shot in the neck. Well, she still has a whole thing of money, and she goes, and then maybe you have the post-credit scene where it's a callback to Street Fighter when Sagat opens the suitcase and it's all like bison dollars or bison bucks. She finally gets away, opens the case, and it's all fake money.
God, that's deep in Contrarians history now. That is such a satisfying ending to that movie when Sagat and is it DJ?
It's DJ. Yeah.
Steal the money and just the despair that comes along with it. So Raghavan, the director of this, wanted the film to have an open ending and considered several options. Both Viacom 18 and Matchbox Pictures production teams were apprehensive about the audience accepting an open ending, but Raghavan persuaded them. I guess this kind of goes to what you and I have talked about a little bit throughout this, based on our limited knowledge, but for the purposes of, you know, the episodes of podcasts we've done, it's a pretty decent sample size, you know, and those movies don't have an open ending unless it specifically tells you, hey, Singham's coming back. The working title was Shoot the Piano Player, which if you put a comma after shoot, it would be my buddy Matt. It would be Shoot the Piano Player. Which was changed because the producers felt an English title would alienate people. Here we go. The title is a play on the word Andhadhun, Andhadhund, which means reckless or relentless, and a play on blind tune and trance. So it looks like a little bit of both what we were talking about earlier, Julio.
Okay. I guess he is reckless. Akash is, everybody's reckless.
Everybody's reckless.
Yeah, that makes sense. Shoot the Piano Player. That reminds me that did you watch through the credits when they start showing footage of piano players in other movies?
I did. I liked that. Yeah.
I mean, I don't know why it was there. Is it just supposed to underline that after all this was just a love letter to piano players?
The pianists of the past. And then they show Adrian Brody and his appearance on SNL that he's now banned for life for.
Yeah, man, Jamaica, man, you know, Rastafari, you know, you got the whole family in the house, you know.
As we're talking about this and the ending and all that stuff, and I am taking the movie to task for not being more profound or for that ending not being deserving a better movie, and what is it saying, and so on, and, you know, we called out The Usual Suspects at least 2 or 3 times. And now I'm thinking, well, what does it mean in The Usual Suspects that Verbal Kint suddenly can walk, right? And that it was all a lie. it really is just there for the shock of it, because it doesn't really affect, what it does is it's like everything that you watched means nothing because it didn't really happen, right? So
that's one of the things. That movie is so famous for its ending that no one ever really. What do you think of when you think of that movie? I think of two things: the ending, obviously, and Benicio del Toro. Give me the keys, you fucking cocksucker. What the fuck,
Here's my I did not expect us to go into a Usual Suspects tangent, but here it is, and I think it's relevant
fine.
because I think that the story that takes you to that twist, it's so well constructed that the gut punch that it is to suddenly realize that it was all a bad guy telling you the story that to get himself off, I think that carries its own kind of power.
Mm-hmm.
It's not what the movie is about, because I think that the movie is more the movie is about the Gabriel Byrne character. Gabriel Byrne is a guy, an ex-criminal that can't turn a new leaf because the cops won't let him.
Mm-hmm.
And so that leads to him becoming involved in this whole enterprise that's the bulk of the movie. And then I think it's just the cherry on top is that, oh, you know what? That it was nothing like that. It was all a lie that Kaiser Soze created. And yeah, you get to the end and you're thinking, well, what really happened? How much of what we saw actually happened? And how much of it was just pure bullshit? And you will never know, right? But that kind of like stands separately from what I think that the story that was told, whether it was true or not, like what it was about, at least from what I remember, The Usual Suspects is just that, well, what's his name?
Stephen Baldwin.
No. McManus is Stephen Baldwin. Fenster is Benicio del Toro. Hockney is Kevin Pollak. I can remember everybody except Gabriel Byrne, but whatever. The story was Gabriel Byrne's, and his failed attempts at redemption.
Dean Keaton is his name in the movie.
Dean Keaton, of course. Yeah, Keaton. So that's, they're two separate things, but they're two things that work independently and also work together. And taking it back to Andhadhun, right? That's not what happens. It's like, I guess the best way of putting it is, if you take the ending of The Usual Suspects away, if you take that final twist away, I think you still have a solid crime movie.
Yeah, that's the thing of it's. I said it's fine earlier, almost for comedic effect, but I agree with you. It's good, and it's almost a shame that all people that have seen it will ever really remember for it is the ending. We had this discussion with The Sixth Sense, remember? Talked about, like, this is a really good movie. It kind of sucks that people just will never know anything except the ending because it's one of the greatest endings that a film has had in my lifetime.
Now talk about that ending. Now that's a twist that really resonates throughout the movie once it happens.
Yes.
So different levels. But what I was going to say is, now look at Andhadhun and you take that final twist out and what are you left with, right? And it's just like, oh, well, kind of a confusing thriller.
Yeah, I would agree with that. But this quote from our director, Sriram Raghavan, this is pretty fucking awesome. He wanted to make a fun sort of thriller. That was his quote. According to him, Andhadhun is not a whodunit. The audience knows all along what's happening and why. It's the characters who do not.
Yes. That's why I was so confused when the one of the early quotes in Contrarians Corner called this a mystery, and they were talking about how to build a mystery. It was like, there is no mystery here. That's a different kind of movie. This is just about seeing them realize what's going on or not realize what's going on. It's good. I think that I've definitely sounded way negative in this Real Talk segment, as if I didn't enjoy the movie, and I did. It was just that I don't think I shared the enthusiasm that the people that really like it have. Probably not even your enthusiasm, but I don't think it's a bad movie. And I think that here's my final point, Alex.
Here's the headline.
I wish I could recommend this movie easily, because I should be able to. If I just give you the pitch, if I just say, this guy's pretending to be blind, which leads to him accidentally becoming the witness of a murder, and now he can't he can't tell
See,
people
that,
about
that
it.
first sentence there is that's like a Hitchcock right there.
Yeah. But then the movie that followed, but if I tell you this, then I'm doing what the movie did to me, and I'm just selling you a movie that's not what you're going to watch.
Mhm.
So that's a problem, because I should be able to just sell you Andhadhun easily, because there's a really strong idea at its core. But then instead, what I'm going to have to say is like, this is the setup, but then lower your expectations, because the movie never gets to be as good as what you're going to imagine when I tell you what it's about.
If this movie was consistent with like the first half hour and like the last 20 minutes, I think I could find myself being like, yeah, 100% on Rotten Tomatoes. Why not? But it trails off, and then it seems as though there is like a sustained period of time where it just loses its focus. And the 5-member writing team on this was just like, yeah, we need to get out of this room, so just have him pair up with Simi again, and then we'll figure it out when we get out of there.
But what does it mean? It doesn't matter. Just get him out of the room.
But he can't see. Well, he just guesses right.
All right. I think we've made it. If we keep talking about it, we're gonna sound even more and more negative, and I don't think this movie deserves that.
Oh no, I'm having fun with most of this because I had fun with this movie, and we'll just go ahead and go into scores here. And I definitely talked myself back off the ledge, because that ending, I was like, holy shit, let's fucking go. But going back through this, spending an hour and a half, 2 hours talking about this movie, I realized, there's kind of these dry patches and these spots that are a bit flaky and don't really make much sense. And I still think it's solid. So I'm willing to go on record, give it a B-. I think a 3.5 star rating, for on a scale of 5 would be a fair assessment of this movie. There are things that are really good about it. I'd be interested to have conversations with folks that have seen it, to talk about the things I really like about it, and then see what they think about, the sequences throughout that didn't really make much sense to me. But at no point, I watched this in 2 sittings, because I made dinner in between the first hour and the second hour. But at no point did I feel the runtime, and at no point, sorry to pick on Vikram, but neither of us enjoyed that movie. I liked it even less than you did. And I found that movie to be bordering on torturous, because I'm pretty sure that was 3 hours. And this moved at a pace that I'm sure there's things I could find to be like, all right, let's chop this. But at no point was I like talking out loud to the screen of like, let's go. So a B- is, I'm fine with that. I enjoyed this, and under the right set of circumstances, I could certainly see myself rewatching this.
Surprise!
So Julio, where did you find yourself landing? And hopefully it wasn't in the car with Simi.
No. No. I did like Sophie, and I stayed away. Now, this is 3 stars for me, as predicted, a little lower than yours. I was toying with 3.5. I think that it boils down to that ending, Alex, because I remember once I realized that the movie was not going to be the movie I wanted, I'm like, well, this is still entertaining. But I just felt like the ending didn't do it for me. I just felt like the ending didn't lift everything else up. Even though talking to you about it, I mean, it certainly made it sound more interesting. But I don't know. I mean, maybe if I watched it again. But right now, it's just 3 stars. Entertaining, good. The problem is also that I can't even say I'm going to put it in the background, because I need to be able to read the subtitles. Yeah. So this is not a background movie. This is a movie you have to sit and pay attention to, and I don't think that the effort is too much, I think, for what you get at the end. But I'll say one more thing that I want to praise, and that is that overall it is an original movie from I guess kind of an up and coming director. I don't know, maybe this guy has made like 20 movies already, but considering how often we ask for fresh stuff for things that are not franchises, then I gotta feel like this gets brownie points just for that. So 3 stars and a soda. That's what it gets.
Looks like he's made one movie since this.
Coming up next, Thunderbolts.
Oh my God. Talk about Contrarians clairvoyance. The last movie this dude made, the director here, Raghavan, was called Merry Christmas, and it came out last year. And the male lead in it is the dude who's the bad guy in Vikram that like chews on meth. And the lead female in it is Katrina Kaif, who looks really fucking familiar. Like we've seen her in something else.
Should Lady Singham?
I don't think she's Lady Singham. She's in Suryavanshi. She plays the Dr. Rhea Gupta, who was like the love interest in that movie. So, man, all these things just melding together. Who knows? Julio and I, I don't know, 2.5 hours, so may have to.
The next Christmas episode for the patron feed.
A mystery thriller. I don't know. At this point, we're melding worlds together, so it's on Netflix. Might have to look into it come this holiday season. Might be onto something here. Brandon Curtis is listening to this, licking his chops. He's like, he's writing the quote down and he's going to send it back to us in November. Be like, I remember what you said. All right. Well, that concludes the current talk of Sriram Raghavan. We may be circling back on his work at some point this year. But for now, Julio, that wraps up our discussion on Andhadhun. Stu, thank you. Giving us a lot to talk about here and an interesting movie to tackle. I hope you enjoyed the episode as a companion to the film itself. Julio, what's coming up next?
Coming up next, we go back to more familiar ground for the Contrarians, specifically for a Contrarian whose name is not Julio. Alex, the time has come for another chapter in the saga called Haddonfield Nights, as patron Ben Murray has tasked us with giving Halloween Resurrection the Contrarians treatment.
That's highly unfortunate.
But this is your franchise. This is your thing.
Is that the only one that we haven't talked about? Well, we haven't had full episodes on a couple of them, but
this is the only one I haven't seen.
Okay.
10%.
Oh, it's awful. It's so bad. Do you know anything about it?
A couple things. I know a couple things. I know Jamie Lee Curtis kisses Michael.
Oh man, I always forget about the opening that she's in. I always think of like Busta Rhymes and Tyra Banks. Like, oh dude, it's a movie that is going to work very well for our formula. But yeah, it's a bit torturous. But I do own it on Blu-ray because I am a completionist. I have a Blu-ray that's a very strange one that I came across that has the theatrical cut of 6. It has H2O and it has Resurrection on Blu-ray. I remember I found that a couple years ago for like $9, and I was like, well, yes, I have to have this.
Is it signed by Busta Rhymes?
Yeah. There's a part in that movie where he tells Michael to skedaddle, and it's one of my favorite moments in the entire franchise.
There you go. Well, that is coming up next. Thank you, Ben. And then on the patron feed, Alex, we have a new bonus episode that's going to be the movie Dinner in America, 91%. So the 90% that was missing from Halloween Resurrection went to Dinner in America, and then they added one more. 91%, and of course, 20 years later, 2022. This is a Jamie Russell pick for the patron feed. We're going to be talking about it. All I know is that Kyle Gallner is in it. If you know anything about the Contrarians, we love us some Kyle Gall.
Big supporters of Kyle Gallner, yes, sir.
Yes, yeah. So that's the bonus episode. And then for QVRs, Ben Murray strikes again. We're going to do the movie Baby Teeth. That's a dual QVR, Alex. And
all right.
I don't know anything about it, but the title sounds intriguing. And then, of course, we have Contrarians After Hours. Alex, what are you bringing to Contrarians After Hours this time?
I watched the recently released documentary on Amazon Prime. This is the Tom Green documentary. It's a documentary about Tom Green by Tom Green. And yeah, well, we're not going to get into it here, but of course, growing up in the late 90s, early 2000s, being a kid at that point, Tom Green was certainly someone I was familiar with. And I found the documentary to be pretty interesting. So looking forward to talking about it.
It's the Chad.
The Chad is brought up in the documentary.
Love it. Well, Alex, on my end, I went to an event, a type of event that I hadn't been to before, even though I heard about this kind of stuff going on, which is when a movie composer decides to do a live show for an audience. So our friends and patrons, Eddie, Jordan, and Kinsey, took me as a delayed birthday present. They took me to see Hans Zimmer, the composer.
Yeah, I know who Hans Zimmer is. That's fucking awesome.
Yeah, he came to Austin. He was at the Moody Center, and we just sat there and we watched him conduct and tell stories in between conducting.
That's awesome.
It was great. I didn't know what to expect, but it went great. I'm gonna give you the stories, and I'm gonna tell you what he played and what he talked about. And if you think that there was a big Interstellar production number, you would be right, and I'll tell you all about it. So Hans Zimmer and Tom Green, the pairing you didn't think could happen, but it is happening on our Patreon channel. You can check that out and all the other stuff that we talked about, patreon.com/Contrarian Prime. Go there. And now we are going to go somewhere else.
Welcome to our end credits.
Or as we usually call them, our perennial plugs.
We start off by giving thanks to the Festive Years who provide our opening and closing tracks. They kick us off with Last Stand and take us home with Summer of 99. Be sure to head over to thefestiveyears.com for any and all Festive Years needs.
Our friend and fellow podcaster Hans Rothgieser is the man behind our logo and all the art you see related to our show. Reach out to him and let him know how much you like that little tomato. His email address is mildemonios@hotmail.com and his website is mildemonios.pe. That's MILDEMONIOS. Hans, thank you for all your support.
For those interested in the regularly absurd world of professional wrestling, Joe and the boys over at latenightgrin.com have you covered. Tell them the Contrarians sent you.
And we like to close with special thanks to our social media team of Zoe Perez and Corey Ari. Each of the social media accounts we mentioned in the introduction look as good as they do because of their work.
So that'll do it for this episode of The Contrarians, where we're right and you're wrong, and we will catch you next time.
Just for old time's sake, I really don't care who you're seeing or how much money you make together.